name is Caroline, and basically I'm gonna start creating videos about books because what else am I gonna make videos about? So I've kind of noticed over like the past year or two, there's just been like such a rise in terms of discussing books, getting new people interested in books, and just overall like a new kind of like book community has risen out of like TikTok and other social media websites. And also like I've noticed like a lot more book YouTubers have started them before, and so I don't know, I just thought that was really interesting. And you know, I hear a lot of opinions every day on books, and I kind of wanted to share mine. So yeah, okay. Well, I am an avid reader. I love reading. I love books that if the main characters are disturbing and you're reading it and you're like, this person like either needs therapy or this person's messed up. Those are like my favorite types of books. Like the more thought-provoking it is, the more I want to read it. Maybe I had a little bit of an angle change. So yeah, basically I love thought-provoking books, and I feel like a lot of people are the same way. They just don't really like to talk about it. So that's why I wanted to do this. So recently on TikTok, I saw this video and it was like books to help you get out of a book slump. And I was inspired by that, and that's what today's video is going to be on, because I think all readers can agree that book slumps are horrible, but I think that the books I chose are moderately quick reads, really interesting, and just really twisty and turny. I don't know if twisty and turny is like a word I should use, or if that's like embarrassing for me to say. Okay, so I picked 5 books that I think will help people get out of a book slump. These books I feel like are just really captivating. I'm not even like that quick of a reader. I like to take my time with books and really just take them in. But these books I finished moderately quickly. They held my attention the entire way through, and they were like really good. So I wanted to put a trigger warning at the beginning of this video because a lot of these books have things that might have content that might be triggering to some people, like there's some violence, drugs, stuff like that. And so I just wanted to put that out there. I don't want anyone who's struggling with any mental health problems to read a book that will just make them feel worse. Does that make sense? Like, I wanted to make sure that it was clear. So the first book I'm talking about is a book I feel like everyone has either heard about or seen the movie or even like read already, but it's Perks of Being a Wallflower. Basically, this story is told kind of in a similar style to Catcher in the Rye. So if you really like that kind of like messed up narrator type of book, you will absolutely love this book. The book is told from the main character Charlie. It's in the format of him writing letters to someone. You don't know who he's writing letters to, but basically it's like his journal entries. It's about his life going into high school, meeting new friends, trying to fit in, and you know, all the bumps along the way. And this book is just really emotional, really well written. I read it so quickly because I feel like the format of the book is really easy to read, and so I think this is a great book to get people out of book slumps. Yeah, so I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. Again, because I love the format of the book. It was a really quick read. I love how emotional and how disturbing it was. But also, I'm gonna sound so bad. I'm probably gonna get a bit of hate for this, but I found sometimes Charlie was a bit annoying. I also found that some of the other characters in the book were overly annoying. I didn't really love all the characters, so that's why I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. This next book I'm really excited about. It's We Were Liars. This is probably like my 3rd favorite book ever. I read this book 2 years ago over the summer, and I kind of went into the book with a bad attitude because it was like required for school, and I kind of went in with a bad attitude, but I literally could not put it down when I started reading it. I read it in one day. It was so good. This book is one of those twisty, turny books I talked about in the beginning of the video. Basically, it takes place during the summer. It has to do with like a really rich family that has a lot of internal problems, and the main character who's really close to her cousins, and all of a sudden she senses they start to ignore her for some reason. This book, when I say I read this book so quickly, I kind of felt bad for like my family and my cousins because I was so intrigued in this book. I was so attached to it. I literally locked myself in the bathroom and stayed up until 3 a.m. just so I could finish this book because I couldn't stop. It's a really quick read, I feel like, super easy to take in. Actually, during the summer, I feel like this is a really good beach read. So I'm pretty sure most of the people, like I said, that are like on the book talk community have heard about this book because it is in so many book talk videos, and many people say it's overrated, but I think it deserves all of the hype it gets. I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars. I'm obsessed with it. The family is so interesting. That's all I'll say. The next book I'm going to talk about is Big Little Lies. I finished this book about 2 months ago, and you guys might be thinking, if this video is about getting out of a book slump, why is this book so thick? This is not going to get me out of a book slump. The book might be thick, but I promise this book is a really quick read because the way it's written and the way it's divided up, I promise. It might look big, but it's really easy to get through. The story is about 3 Australian suburban moms who all have an internal or family crisis going on at the same time, and the book is divided between the 3 women's perspectives. I went into this book kind of like, okay, like, because it gets a lot of hype, you know, because again, it's an amazing book and I completely understand all the hype it gets. I don't know if this makes sense, but I felt like it was kind of like a mom book. I don't know if y'all know what I'm talking about, but I feel like this is a book that a mom would have in her pool bag while she's taking her 2 kids to the neighborhood pool, and she just wants to like de-stress for a bit and escape from her kids. This is the book for those types of moms. That's why I kind of thought it was a mom book. So I wasn't really expecting to love it that much, but oh my god, I finished this book in 2 days. The way it's written, the way the plot like just unwraps itself. It's written in such a particular style that you cannot stop because you have to know what happens next. Like, I'm not exaggerating. Like, I had to know what happens next. I could not put the book down. Afterwards, I was like, why am I obsessed with these 3 Australian moms and their story? The story starts out in kind of like a light tone, but then it just gets like darker and darker throughout the story. That's what I'll say. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. I would highly recommend. Again, I think this would be a great beach read. It will for sure get you out of a reading slump. Very hard to put the book down once you start it. This next book, the trigger warning at the beginning, I feel like was particularly for this book. This book is called Diary of an Oxygen Thief, and I don't know who it's by because it's anonymous. Think of Perks of Being a Wallflower, but if Charlie was like a grown man and just like a horrible person. Basically, the narrator he's a really messed up person and he has a lot of mental problems, and he shows that in many different aspects of his life. The way he writes it is almost as if he didn't expect the book to be published, and he writes it as if it was a true story, which I believe it was a true story, by the way. If y'all read this book at the end, tell me if y'all thought it was like a true story or not. The way how it's written, the way that it's anonymous, I truly feel like it was a true story, which makes the book 10 times more disturbing. It just has a lot to do with heartbreak. It has a lot to do with just people that should not be in relationships. Here, I'll read the back. So it says on the back, say Holden Caulfield was an alcoholic and Lolita was a photographer's assistant, and somehow they met in Bright Lights, big city. So that should pretty much sum it up for you. This book is really good. The author writes, like, if this book even gets published, I doubt this book will get published. If you're reading this, it means the book got published. So it's very personal. You feel like he's telling it directly to you, which also makes it way more thought-provoking. So that's why I think this is such a good book, because even though it's not really that relaxing, I feel like it will get people out of a book slump because you just cannot put it down because you're so interested in this horrible person's story and you feel like he's telling it directly to you. So I give it 4 out of 5 stars just because, of course, I don't like the narrator. I feel like that's good that I don't like the narrator. I feel like after you read this, you should not like the narrator. This last book, I feel like is on TikTok a lot. Actually, that's where I heard about it from. It's about a woman who grows up with an abusive father, and basically that follows her around throughout her life and in friendships, relationships. Okay, just ignore that. My phone fell. And throughout the book, her past and people from her past, her childhood, like best friend slash boyfriend, they come back into her life. Book goes back and forth between her childhood and her adulthood, and I feel like that's what makes it so interesting. I read this in only a few days. It's really hard to put it down. I feel like it's an easy read. If you want a book that isn't too complicated, I feel like this is a really good book for you. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars just because I felt like it lacked some substance in it. I don't know. I feel like a book to get you out of a book slump doesn't necessarily need to be like The Bell Jar or 100 Years of Solitude. Okay, yeah, so basically that's it. These are my 5 books that I think will help people get out of book slumps. And I know book slumps are just horrible, especially like that feeling where you're like in the middle of like a long book and you just cannot carry through with it anymore. I completely understand that feeling. And so I feel like these books are just perfect to get readers back on track reading. In a way. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense, but I hope it does. So I hope y'all like this video. I hope y'all read these books.